There you go,
It's
Barbie.
really incredible.
Good evening and welcome to the Georgetown School Committee meeting of Thursday, February 6th, 2014. If we could please rise and say our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the only agenda item on this evening's agenda is the FY15 Superintendent's recommended budget to the school committee.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So I think I'd start by just very quickly walking you through the memo, which is just an overview. Hopefully you've had a chance to go through your binders. I want to thank Rob and Pam for going through the binder or going through the budget in detail with us and providing us with some guidance on a couple of things that we needed some help with. And of course to Joan and the administrative team, who, every year do an amazing job pulling things together. I think putting together budgets, that clearly, as I say in my notes here, that force some difficult decisions. Of course, there's always more that we would like or feel that we need than whatever makes it to the budget. But I think the goal is always to do the best we can for children, and our teachers, do a fantastic job with what we have available. And then it is about the quality of the teaching and the learning process, and that isn't always about money. So I think we try to strike that balance. But very proud of what we're doing and where we're going and how we're meeting our strategic goals. Obviously, the budget should be, in my opinion, should be a means to achieving the goals, not an end in itself. So the budget is really designed to help us facilitate many of the goals in our strategic plan. So, it's my pleasure to present the superintendent's recommended budget for fiscal year 2015. The proposed budget is $13,597,057. That represents a 3.09% increase over FY14. What follows is a breakdown. One of the things that we generally do ourselves anyway, but one of the things that FinCom in the last year or so has asked us to do is to look at the budget overall, but then really to break down salaries, non-salaries, and then in our case, special education tuition and transportation. Largely because that's where there's a little bit of volatility. It's kind of like I talk about it being a little like snow and ice. You don't know when you're going to get how many storms in the winter you're going to get, and you have to pay the bills anyway. And in the case of special education, we've spent a lot of time and effort trying very hard to provide quality in-house programs that are cost-effective, as well as keep students in the district, and in some cases, we've been able to help other districts that have had students who have needed a placement, and they've been satisfied with the quality of our program, so we've been able to actually tuition some children in. But special ed tuition and transportation is our special ed expenses are integrated into our salaries and non-salaries, but the special ed tuition and transportation is pulled out. So one of the things that we were asked to do was to come up with a level services budget, as you know, which to us, the way I think we all define that is continuing to do everything that we're doing, unless we need to make a change because it's not as effective. We do that. Our favorite word is creative redirection. There are some times when maybe something we're doing is either not working, or we think something else is more important, so we make some decisions about redirecting the resources that we have. But what we did this year is we took everything that we had. The principals did a really good job of looking at what the need is. If we're doing a new curriculum or new textbooks we need to order, we've tried to accommodate for some of those that are high priorities. If their curriculum we're already using, the principals know how much of an increase that might represent to order supplies for next year. So you'll notice, though, when you look at the non-salary items, there really isn't a lot of deviation. There are some slight increases that are caused by some of the district testing that we're using, and as I said, some minor increases in some supplies and materials that are consistent with what we've already been doing. But there are a couple of positions that I highlight in here that I wanna be sure that you're aware of. So there are some, obviously the salary increases. I mean, when we look at our little graphic in here, you can see that actually when Joan put the graph together, it's a little pie chart. When you look at that pie chart, you'll notice that if you were to look at last year's pie chart, it's under tab D. You'll notice that it looks very, very similar, almost identical,
great.
right?
Yeah.
To what we spent last year in each of those categories. Salaries are obviously always, in any human service business, I'm sure when they look at the police, the fire, you know, a good chunk of it is always the cost of personnel. So this year, we did, that did increase by 4.34%, but the great majority of that, and Joan breaks it down in within the budget, is, we have a lot of young teachers, and when they get their raises, they get a step and a scale. So obviously they're, you know, as you hire the young teachers, which is great for the district, they bring an energy and enthusiasm, and, you know, they're here for a long time. The challenge with that is that, you know, they don't make as much money, but they have these built-in steps along the way that we have to account for. And then we have we have a couple of teachers, very, very successful, you know, veteran teachers, who are going to retire this year. And in the contract, there's a provision for early retirement incentive and some sick leave buyback. So that actually is part of the salary increase. That doesn't happen every year. There's some years we have no one retiring, and then there are other years when we do, and it's part of the contractual benefit package. And then, you know, obviously, we're negotiating with custodians, we're negotiating with the food service workers, administration negotiates every year, and then otherwise, the contracted raise that the teachers' union negotiated is accounted for, you know, in this. So it's all in the salaries. Special education costs, interestingly, this year go down by a little under $100,000. Also included in your binder, you perhaps could take a look at the tab that has the special ed breakdown, and you will notice that that is reflective of fewer students on IEPs. Donna does a great job of breaking down what kind of programs they're in, as well, just for your information. But one of the challenges that we're going to need to, we should just call your attention to it, is that as we always do, we budget exact numbers, actuals.
Mhm.
So, you know, in the past, you know, we've had years where things happen during the year, and so therefore we have had to go to circuit breaker, which is a reimbursement for high costs for special education that you get basically the following year. So that's how we have covered it. In some years, we've had to freeze the budget. Some years, we've had to make cuts to the budget. You know, that meant we didn't buy some of the things that we had said that we wanted to, because those are expenses that we incur and we must pay in the year we incur them.
Right.
Circuit breaker is the reimbursement for the following, that we get the following year. But we don't get to say, oh, you know, we don't have that $60,000. We have to find the $60,000. The FinCom in the last couple of years, which we have appreciated, and the town's support as well, you know, when there's been those extraordinary expenses that we couldn't have predicted, they weren't in place when we formulated the budget. They have wanted to know that, because they feel like that's the only way that we can really track how much special education is costing us. So I bring it to your attention here, because these are based on actuals. It may happen that as time goes on, there are circumstances that come up, in which case those costs may increase. Okay? And then finally, new positions. And as I said to the Budget and Finance Subcommittee, there's sort of two kinds of new positions, right? There's positions that we have, but they're increasing because of the fact that the caseload's increased. So if you look, I highlighted them for you. For example, at Pearlie, we have this, we call our greenhouse program. That greenhouse program, when we started it, we funded with a preschool revolving account. That account is, and you'll see in the section in your budget book on revolving accounts, what all of those revolving accounts look like, from what we're expecting the balance to be at the end of the year, the carryover to be, and what the expenses are expected to be for next year, and what's being charged. The greenhouse teacher, we sort of always understood was probably not gonna be sustainable in that account.
Right.
So it's technically not a new position, we have the position, it's just that it needs to shift into the budget, so that does get reflected. Speech and language, this year we have 0.3 less than what we're going to need next year, based on the actual caseloads of students. So in the budget is reflected 1.5 FTEs for speech and language and a 1.0 at Pembroke. So that's not a new position. We still have 2 speech and language pathologists. It's just that we need more of their time.
But it's required
Okay.
by law.
But it's new money.
We have to.
It's new money, and it is required by law.
Right.
Then, the 0.5 English language learners. Now, we don't have very many English language learners in our town of Georgetown, but we actually have more than we've had in the past. So, as I explained to you here, we've solved this problem in a couple of different ways in the past. We had teacher certified, you have to be certified ELL teacher. We had certified teachers already doing like maybe a reading tutor position or something like that. And so what we did is we could cover those caseloads, then we can't now. So, because they're busy doing other services as part of our strategic goals. We then hired a consultant last year. We have too many kids now. It's tough. It's a lot more expensive when you do it that way. It's much better to take a part-time person who is loyal to you and knows your kids and knows your families.
yeah.
And and you don't really need to know this now, but there are different levels of ELL services ranging from level 1 to level 4. Level 1 is the more intensive services that need more time, kids that need more time. The students we have right now are level 1 and level 2. So they require more time than if they were, for example, a level 3 or a level 4 student.
Right.
And there actually are 4 students that have been tested, but we won't have the test results until May. So we don't know whether they're gonna qualify,
Which level?
next year. Well, we don't know that. We don't know if they're gonna qualify, and B, we don't know what level they'll be at. So we feel it's prudent. Again, we've been covering ELL services, but this is actually allowing us to do it in the way that we think is gonna meet the services in the best way. Pembroke, the secretary there has had a school year contract with a week or so in the summer at per diem. With schools, well, next year Margaret's gonna be the principal of both schools. And so one of the things you have to rely on when you do that is that you have somebody that's in the office, that's there, can man the ship when you're, between buildings. And I was a principal of 2 schools at one point, and I can tell you, it was very, very important to have 2 secretaries, one in each building, to handle a lot of the kind of things that do come up. Next year in the budget, we are going to have all of the secretaries now be on a full-time basis. It's about an $8,000 change to the budget, but that again, it's not really a new position. We have the position, it's just an expansion of services. Then we start getting into the positions that I'd say in category 2, which are, we don't have them now, but we consider them needed. Assistant principal at the elementary level, we've talked about this before in terms of the restructuring. So we want to hire, we want to be able, I think we've already posted actually, we want to post and advertise, get a really great person, maybe under contract to start July 1. And we do have a job description in Appendix C, Tab T, if you're interested in that. Then the high school is asking for a science and technology teacher. There's a pretty detailed proposal in that tab T, so that you will see why that's important, what the value is. We're very interested in expanding our STEM initiatives in the district, both at the elementary school level as well as the high school. In fact, that's one of the things we'd love when we open the Pembroke School, to have, the ability to have a nice focus on STEM. Science, math, and technology, for those of you who aren't quite familiar with what that is. So this will allow us to teach a required course to 7th and 8th grade students, that will really focus on the standards that really we're finding 35 to 40% of the MCAS exam is focused on these standards. And actually, with all honesty, what we're offering right now doesn't come close to really meeting the standards in a comprehensive way. So by doing this and by purchasing, some textbooks, some classroom sets of textbooks to try them out this year, we can see if we need to expand them in the future. But what we're really hoping is that this be a really hands-on class where kids are really exploring the principles of understanding design and engineering. And so this position, as I said, is a new position, but we feel that it's really important to really hit those Common Core standards, to really provide those 21st century skills, to really help our students prepare for the MCAS exams.
Based on our
And this
science
is-
MCAS results that we've had.
Yes, we aren't happy with our science MCAS results. Although in the high school, I would say at the high school, our science results are good.
But this
They're
is
excellent.
middle school.
It's really, this is middle school. This is getting kids ready to take those.
And-
Go ahead, Rob.
I'm sorry, and this is consistent with the strategic plan?
Yes, it is consistent with the strategic plan. And then finally, the last one, and then, certainly, we can go into the various sections of the budget if you have any questions. District Technology Director. This is something that is in our strategic plans. In fact, it's in our goals, our district goals for the superintendent's goals were to add, we added technology as one of the areas we talked about in our retreat. So, it's gonna be a bit of a juggling act here. I put in here, just for your information, we agreed as a group when the Budget and Finance Committee met that we would put in a half-time director, because we think it's really important to get a director in place. Especially now, given the fact that major decisions are gonna start to need to be made at the Pembroke, on what the technology is actually gonna be looking
And
like.
that has to be consistent with the
And
district.
and we need to have a real consistent look at the district level. And thanks to Peter and all of our technology staff, if you were to look at the 5-year technology plan, and you were to go back and you were to say, wow, that is amazing how much of that plan got done. Of course, thanks to the generous donations of families and parents and GEF and PTA and the creative efforts of the principals to raise funds and come up with creative ways to do leases. We've done a lot. I think it's quite remarkable, actually. Because when we developed that plan, I remember people saying, oh, well, we're never gonna get to this without a budget. And honestly, when you start looking at the professional development and the teachers that are stepping forward and doing Technology Tuesdays, offering trainings for their colleagues, and Technology Mondays at Pembroke, and now we've got smart boards and things like that, at least at the elementary level in every room, and Peter's been working on getting Apple TVs. We're doing a lot, but what we have to remember now is we don't want to just add a lot of things and everything doesn't mush together. We have to make sure it's all done in a very cohesive
Planned out.
plan. So that's why if the most we can get is a part-time director, I don't expect it to stay as a part-time director, but if that's all we can get initially, then we will do our best to make that work. What's in tab T is a job description of a technology director that is not half-time. And the reason for that exercise is we should know what we really need, right? So, if I were pressed to go through that job description and start picking, it also depends on the skills of the person you hire. But I have a feeling that in a part-time person, you'd probably get somebody who would really be doing more of the technology, techie kind of things. And really, I think what we all hope for technology going forward is that we really get at the heart of technology, which is the infrastructure around instruction and how to really make it a tool for learning. So you have that as a backdrop. Again, it depends on what we want the overall budget, where we want the overall budget to land, right? So and I'll take your question. So I looked and I said, well, if it's 3.09, if we adopted this budget as it is, if we were to go with a full-time director, then it would be 3.37% would be the overall budget increase for the, I just wanted you to have that
0.37.
information. The other thing that's not in this budget, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, and, you know, we're gonna do this through some creative redirection, but it is, we did not put any clerical support for both Julie and at one point, we were looking for a 1.0 secretary for the share between Julie and the technology director. And we're already putting something in place to help Julie this year, and it will obviously for next year. But the goal going long-term is we really, you know, a clerical position would be important going forward. If we can't do it in this budget year, I just wanna put it on the table as something that we, you know, we'll see if what we're putting together can work. But once and I do see once the Pembroke opens, because we're gonna start talking about how some staff can shift in responsibilities. You know, there may be a way to accommodate for it in that shift, right? But I won't know that till we start building the budget for next year. But it isn't in here, and I do think in fairness to Julie, it's important for me to tell you that. Rob, what question did you have?
It wasn't actually so much of a question as I just wanted to highlight what you just said, which is the difference between part-time and full-time, or half-time and full-time, is 3.09% to 3.37%. And it's something that I've been giving a lot of thought about, and when we get back around to talking about this, I wanna talk more about that.
Sure, yeah. And I just asked Joan, so, you know, Rob just pointed out the difference, but what is it in dollars? And it's $35,000.
37, yeah.
Yeah.
35 or 37.
Okay. And then just, you know, to finish that up, one of the things that, as you know from the strategic plan, that we have a number of initiatives that we have to adjust to the Common Core. There are some units that we need to make adjustments to, some books we're gonna need to purchase. And one of the things that we have not included is any money for that in this budget. But what I'm going to suggest, and this is again up for conversation, obviously, what I'm gonna suggest is that the leases for the computers we had on the school choice are coming up, are done, I guess. So what I would make the proposal is that we take that $20,000 or $30,000 and we plan for the next 3 years as we have choice money. And if we have more, then we should add more. But that's where we would pick those key initiatives that we need, things we can't maybe get grants for, or other things, so we can move forward to buy materials to adjust to the model units that the teachers are now gonna be able to do, or, you know, those kind of things. We don't have any money other than what has been included in the current curriculum that we're doing.
Will there be a need for a new lease of something?
So
When
that
In-
was
these-
for-
in
was for the
technology?
service,
It was for the servers.
right, it's not
We
the
do have
computers.
money in Peter's budget for
Okay.
some leases for the machines that he's got at the high school. But that's why I want the technology director, right? Because the technology director really does need to look at what we've got, what we need.
How we might be able
how
to
we might-
streamline, how we might,
Exactly,
yeah, something like
exactly.
that.
But I think, no matter where we get the money, we have to put money toward curriculum. It's just not a choice.
Right.
And, you know, again, we're gonna have, it's like taking all the puzzle pieces, right? We're trying to put the puzzle pieces together in the way that's gonna make the most fiscally responsible sense. But we have to do something to adjust to the standards. We can't just say to people, oh, here's your new curriculum, here's your new set of standards, but, oh, well, you have to use the old materials you have that aren't well aligned, but you can figure it out. You know, we're certainly not abandoning them, we're gonna use everything we've got, but there will be places where we do need to bring in something that's going to be a good alignment with the curriculum that we're doing.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the things that increased the budget, you prioritized above the curriculum needs that you foresee? Is that-
Well,
Because you
the
just said you
budget-
didn't put those in this budget, is that
Well,
right? Did I hear you correctly?
Correct, but I think the answer to that is yes, sort of. And that is that the positions that we just talked about, with the exception of the Director of Technology, are all, and the .5, although I would say that's a direct curriculum, so that's where that is in
Okay.
there. If you take that out, the other ones are really almost related to mandated services.
Okay.
So those are not a choice. I couldn't say, oh, I'm not gonna fund the greenhouse program, because I've got kids that need that program. I can't say, oh, I'm not gonna fund the speech and language, because, oh, by the way, sorry, I don't have enough staff for all the kids, so some kids can't get services. That's not a choice.
Okay.
So yes, sort of, because
Okay.
those were things, I think we talked about this at the Budget and Finance, kinda like, well, what's sort of it's not really a choice.
Right.
And in our
Right.
minds.
Okay, thank you
In our
for
minds,
clarifying.
you know,
That just-
yeah. And then lastly, the athletic budget. Chris put his budget together and is not recommending an increase to the user fees. But I just wanna call your attention, we still are dependent on the $33,000 in choice and the $68,829 that we've been always talking about. Be nice to be able to not have to rely so much on that, but you know, the good news is, we're not ending on the negative side at this point in the
Correct.
athletic
We won't.
budget, and we
Right,
won't.
We won't.
So, so the way we budgeted a little differently last year, we sort of accounted for the bodies that we weren't gonna get user fees for. And Chris did a good job, of course, we didn't have Triple E. He's done some creative things with transportation, so, you know, Chris is doing an awesome job.
His
So,
participation is up as well.
his participation is up, which is always great to see. So, that's really the summary, of what's new and different in the budget. I do include, just because I think it's always good to have a context, the strategic plan, just so you can kind of go back and, you know, if you're inclined to make those direct connections, that's there. And then I think the best thing to do, let's just look at the budget calendar for just a sec. So so here we are tonight, on the proposed budget. So we're gonna have a public hearing at the next meeting, so people will be invited from the public, and we'll notify them. It's been posted in the newspaper already, I think. But they can come and make any statement they want on the budget, and then we'll put it on the agenda for you all in case there's further discussion after tonight. And then you can determine if you're ready to vote on the budget on the 13th, or if you want to wait and vote on the budget on the 27th. We are waiting for FinCom to tell us when they would like to meet with us, but they're not going to have us come before the FinCom at the Saturday meeting, which is coming up, because you follow a slightly different process, and you would be discussing, they would be discussing a budget, you would be discussing a budget with them that you haven't approved. So this just allows us to make the process pure. Okay, so if you go to tab D, budget overview is really basically what I just said. But Joan does a little budget overview with some basic assumptions. Was there anything, Joan, that I didn't cover that is here that you wanted to focus on?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Can you just elaborate a little on school choice revenue increase by adding 10 new students?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yes, we can. Well, if you look back at the revolving account for school choice, and look at the tab, I think. Where is school choice? It's in the it's in the,
P.
it's in section P. Okay. So, as you can see, we're not projected to have very high carry forward. That is the lowest carry forward I've ever seen since I've been here.
Negligible.
Yeah, and then what we do is we look ahead to, we first take the graduating students out and we project forward. And then, if we add the 10 students, this is what we've got. So the total revenues would be 211,443. But then you would balance it with, so if, and this is a big if, I mean, that's where if we have the curriculum, that's where I would take that money. Athletics, we're committed to the 33, right? And then we still have staff members, which we have always said we do not want to do, but we do have 2.5 teachers, I believe, on this grant. And then, so you can see, you're talking 201. So we would need, in order to meet all of the expenses, we would need to increase the revenue. So every year, we talk about this, and we'll have another meeting on school choice, because you'll look with us at the enrollment very carefully, but I am not anticipating, although I don't know what's gonna happen at kindergarten level, but I don't know, they always said the kindergarten numbers were gonna drop, and that hasn't been the case for us in the last couple of years, so, but we don't know that, that's always volatile. But I don't see any elementary grade where I believe we can take school choice students.
Again, it's hard to know about kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
I won't really know until the spring.
And Donna, you're 22, 23 in all your classes, right?
Second grade is probably the one grade you probably take it to.
Right.
Current second grade.
Current second grade, going into third. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think there's much in the elementary, that's just, I guess, the point I'm making. And then, every year, you know, Peter always has, you know, the number of kids going to Whittier, if you remember that report I did recently, number of kids going to Whittier has increased some. You know, the private school, you know, is kind of level, it's pretty predictable every year, although one year we had substantial, more kids than normal, because Peter does study those trends. But, you know, usually in the ninth grade, we do have some spots available, and, you know, we have to look and see about the 10th grade.
No ninth grade this year.
No ninth grade this year?
Because that's the bubble class coming in.
Okay,
Oh, the current eighth grade?
Oh.
okay. So, we're, you know, then we have to look, I mean, I would not
That's
advise,
gonna be a problem.
well,
We could take some tenth graders.
I think it also depends on how many kids leave too. I mean, I agree with Peter, it's still a large number, but 10th graders possibly. And again, I don't know what the middle school numbers are looking like. See, that's why I don't really wanna get into it, because I don't have enough information, but we are
I think
predicating
111 fifth grade, is that 111 fifth grade, is it coming?
111
Yeah.
for six sessions? I mean, we divided in 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there might be some possibilities there, but we would be looking for 10 students.
So you're just throwing that, right
We're-
now, we're just
right.
saying 10, but we don't know
Right,
where we're gonna put
Right,
them.
because what it means though is, if we don't do that, that's fine, we would probably not have the money for the curriculum. That, I mean, but again, that's.
I know, but,
We
well,
really
we,
need to. I mean,
Right.
well, we do, but we
But-
don't wanna take school choice children for the reason of,
Oh, absolutely not. We would, yes, you don't wanna take school choice just for the kids, for the money, absolutely not. But if there's room, which in the past, there's been room at the high school level.
Right.
Elementary, it's tough. And remember, at some points, since I've been here, some points we had 6, 7 sessions of elementary
Well,
grades. We don't have any of that. And with the new, now we're 5 of every grade. And the new school, it's built for 5 of every grade. So we wanna be really careful about creating bubble classes if we can avoid that.
So you don't
So
think
I
the
don't
new
wanna
school
bring
is
people-
going to change the face of the elementary school choice potential?
Oh, I think a lot of people are gonna wanna bring their kids into the new school,
Right.
but we are not gonna have the
But we
space.
wouldn't be able to
I
because of,
would not, I do not
Right.
anticipate
Okay.
that. Oh, I think that's gonna definitely be the case.
yeah.
We're just ever so slowly trending back up in the
Yes.
choice
Yes,
over 212, 213,
Yes.
214.
right. And honestly, to be very honest with you, we get so many more applications for school choice than we can. We'd have numbers like this if we could take all the kids who wanted to come.
Right.
We can't do it. We're very careful about making sure the first priority is the Georgetown
The
kids.
Georgetown kids and our
You know.
class sizes and,
Yeah, that's right.
absolutely.
But that's what that means, Rob, okay? You know, just wanna put everything on the table, right? Okay, so back to so I think, you know, Peter would like to go to the school play if possible. So maybe if we could focus on the middle high school, budgets, you ladies will be all right with that, right? Usually we start with Port Pearlie, so we'll start from the top first. Come on over, Peter. So let's find what tabs we're looking for here. We're looking for H and I, right? H, I, and J. Okay. So Peter, I don't know if there's anything you would wanna highlight, or,
Well, I just, for the middle school, I just want to briefly elaborate on the need for that technology education curriculum. So if you look at our science scores, they're nowhere near where we want them to be. And I think the reason is pretty obvious, because 1/3 of the material isn't covered. So we obviously want to do that, and we think that the curriculum is about a year-long curriculum, but we think we can do it in 3 quarters over 2 years without any disruption to the program now. Presently, every 7th and 8th grader takes technology education. So we want to get a new curriculum with new books, and it will be mandatory for all kids. And we will deliver that in the special block. So they're taking tech ed anyway, they're gonna take tech ed with a different curriculum that hits all the technology and engineering frameworks. And they will also get that in the 7th grade in the enrichment block. So when they have science enrichment, that's what it will be. So the books are kind of expensive. They're about $71 each. And for the first year, we think we can get by with a classroom set to see how it goes and to see when the teachers actually develop the day-to-day lessons and everything, how much they're going to utilize the book, how much homework there's going to be. Rather than invest in a book for everybody, we can have a classroom set. If we feel that that's the case, then next year I'll be here again asking for another $10,000 for books for that. So. The other good news about this is we have to, this may not sound like a good news to you, but we do have to hire another part-time position to deliver this, because it's very important that we deliver the 8th grade portion of this all in the first semester, because the MCAS test is going to be in May. So if kids had it in the second semester of the 8th grade, they wouldn't get the whole curriculum. So in order to do that, you need 2 bodies, because I have to have 2 tech ed classes running at the same time. So to make a long story short and a complicated story simple, we feel that we'll also be able to add to the high school curriculum. So next week when I present the curriculum changes to you, I will be asking for a new engineering class in the high school. We'll be able to do that utilizing this position also. This budget does not include $1,100 for books for that program, and I would ask you to consider adding that at this time.
Add $1,100.
Yeah, $1,100 for high school textbooks.
Oh, high school tax.
High school textbooks to cover the new engineering course. And I apologize for coming to you at this time, but when I sat down and I actually figured out all of the mechanics of the schedule and how everything was going to work, I didn't know I would be able to do this. And I certainly want to take advantage of it if we can do that.
So would that make that 20,000 in choice 21?
No, he's asking, it would increase the bottom line of the budget by
Oh.
$1,100
Okay.
The high school.
in the high school budget, yeah.
High school textbooks, yeah.
Uh,
So that's about it for the middle school. So the big increase in the middle school budget really is middle school text because of that new course. So it's probably up about 10 grand from the previous year, maybe.
Are these new textbooks available online? Is there any way, I mean, since it's a new curriculum and a new?
These are for a hard copy. I haven't explored that yet, but normally, take the new high school books, for example, the engineering course. Those books, to get you have to buy the hard copy, and to get an online edition of that, it's another $17 per book, and it's only for 6 years. So that's what the publishers are doing now. They used to sell you a CD, or you could go to their website and you could have it. They don't do that anymore. They put an expiration date on it. So, I mean, we have books that are still relevant that are beyond 6 years old. So they're kind of, putting you in a position where you have to upgrade your book every 6 years. So I think you guys really need to think about if you want to do that.
It's an expensive option, too.
It
It's kind
is.
of like Kindle books. You hope that they would be so cheap, but they're not.
Right.
They're as much as a paperback sometimes.
Peter, two questions. Can you
Yep.
just elaborate on the science teacher salaries down 10%?
Oh, she probably wouldn't be able to do that. I did that. I was
Oh,
looking
I
at,
could tell you the obvious thing that she would know better, but we have a retirement of a
That's what-
veteran.
I just looked it up because as you were talking, I said, why would it go down if we're adding a teacher? But that's exactly what it was.
And then
Yeah.
the supplies up 571.
Where?
Are you in high school?
That's it. I'm in middle school.
Oh, middle school, sorry.
We went back.
That's the MAPS testing. We added that at Pearlie, Pembroke, and middle school, $5,000.
Right, and we're doing English, math, and science
And it went into the
at that.
the guidance line. It was trying to pick a line to put it in.
And that's important.
Mhm.
That was a priority that we decided on.
Right, and, yeah, because you,
I put it down below.
yeah, you did. Any other questions on the middle school, high school? And then the other one is, J is just the middle high school,
Yeah.
combined.
The high school, there's really, nothing new there. In the middle high school, really, the only thing that I'm asking for is some stools for the art room, because, they're old and we had to, an emergency basis,
I
buy-
put them in Mike Anderson's budget. I didn't put them in your
Oh,
budget.
okay. Good.
You got 'em.
Yeah.
Was there an injury? Was there?
No, but they're old and they're falling apart, and we had to buy some this year to get every kid in a stool, and we wanna do the rest of them. And so then we'll keep the best of the old ones for spares in case they break.
So how many are you getting?
Was it 16?
Yeah, I think,
24? No, 1,600 you asked for, wasn't it?
yeah, I think we've got 20.
Probably
Anyway, I think it was
classroom sets.
1,600 that
Yeah.
you asked for.
But some of them are still okay, probably. You
Well,
know,
they'll be all new. We bought 10 this year, I think, and so we're looking for 20 more,
Yeah.
so they're all new,
And you'll just save the good ones for spares?
yeah.
Okay, anything else on the middle high school budget? Have anything for you? Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck at the play, I'm sure
Thank
it's gonna be
you.
enjoyable.
Yes, I look
Donna?
forward
Best
to.
set I've ever seen, I
Yeah.
can tell you that.
Is it?
Good.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm
good.
excited.
Family
So,
and I, we're going
Margaret and
tomorrow
Donna?
night. We're looking forward to it.
Good.
All right. Good evening, ladies.
What's the name of the play?
So, let's see. Pearlie is tab F. Okay. Go backwards. We're not gonna make Margaret go first always. Okay. Margaret, did you have anything you wanted to point out, or, I mean, Jonah's provided explanation. Jonah's
I
provided.
bolded anything that was new.
Right, now, a couple of those positions that I talked about earlier are in Pearlie. And then the MAPS assessment. Margaret, maybe you could, you also had another, there was the Ready Schools assessment? Maybe you could just explain that very briefly.
There are a couple increases in, I think we put them in a guidance line. The kindergarten, as part of the kindergarten grant, and I think I've talked about the Ready School assessment, that is an expense that we'll have to incur. We needed last year to bring in a consultant to teach us how to implement the Ready Schools assessment. This year, she has to come back to certify that we are a Ready School, and then it's an every other year process. So next year, we'll be okay with that, but then the following year, we'll have to go through that again. The other thing that's new is that the state is mandating another assessment for kindergarten. And I've been preparing kindergarten teachers for the past year and a half that it was coming. And I spoke to a woman from the state that I talk with periodically, and she said the state has chosen for us. So I don't have an amount. I don't know yet how much that will be. And the state may pick up some of that cost. But I think I added, I don't know if I added in guidance for that, but then MAP is also,
MAPS is in
New.
there.
So we have to have these two assessments of kindergarten students, Ready and,
well, the Ready School assessment is part of the kindergarten grant, and I had a choice of what that assesses the program.
oh,
So
okay.
we could have
So
either
it's
done.
different,
Yes,
assessing different. One
Exactly.
is the students and the other is the program.
yes.
Got it.
Exactly.
But they're both significant initiatives.
Oh,
Significant initiatives. And, you know, that's one of the things, though, we do have that kindergarten grant, and that's where our kindergarten assistants are paid for.
Right,
So we
right.
really need
Absolutely
to
necessary,
always
you know, I was
make sure we're, you know, but it is amazing. It is amazing. And I don't think down the road, and Julie and I, learning what we're learning about Park, you know, it's very likely that at some point, they're gonna provide optional tests for as low as kindergarten, you know, kindergarten, first, second, and third, you know, grade. It's just quite amazing, you know, the testing craze is, you know, ratcheting up and not ratcheting back, which, you know, I have to say that all of the local,
Have to make it
all of the
meaningful,
associations are continuing to bombard, you know, the legislature and the commissioner with stop the madness, you know, we need to control this, you know, nobody's afraid of accountability, but it can't be that we're going in 10 different directions and no one really, you know, knows what difference it's actually even gonna make, if any.
Why the disconnect?
You know, Rob, I think a lot of it comes from, you know, there's large funding partners that somehow have determined that, you know, we've put all these billions of dollars into education, now there needs to be accountability, and they don't really understand, like, what really, you know, good education really looks like. It's all about what the numbers say.
Business model
Business
versus
model,
education.
And more
You know,
numbers are better numbers,
And yeah,
regardless
and the
of-
thing is, a lot of it, like I said, you know, I think if it makes sense, and then, you know, there's all the political agendas that go on. I mean,
yeah.
and to be honest with you, a lot of this stuff isn't bad.
Right.
It's not bad. We're not saying, oh, you know, I mean, under ed reform and under even just using the MCAS, there are kids in this Commonwealth that are getting better educations than they ever got before, because there was this accountability. It's that when you start to layer it all on top of each other, and you really don't take time to figure out how does everything fit, the disconnect.
Simultaneously.
And
If it were
simultaneously.
One initiative every year
How can
rather
you
than 10.
possibly-
Yeah, so I think that's the disconnect. It's like everybody's got a sense of urgency. I think it's gonna be very interesting. What was it, Boston, did I just hear on the news, Boston was talking about how it was gonna cut like this huge amount of money. Well, that was predictable, because when you took Race to the Top money, right, and people hired all of these positions, and Race to the Top money ends this year, where does that money come from? Most local school districts do not have millions of spare dollars that they can just say, oh, gee, I think we'll just take it on ourselves. You know, it's that whole funding cliff that, you know, we faced several years ago when we took the money
Stimulus.
for the stimulus money. You know, and Race to the Top was much more money. And that's why we did not do it, because it wasn't gonna be a significant amount of money, but I knew exactly what was gonna happen, and we're gonna have to do it anyway. But we would have had to be doing this stuff 2 years ago,
The more I learn, the more I respect that decision. That was
You
a
know.
good decision, yes.
so. But, back to the discussion about the Pearly budget. Is there anything else, Margaret?
I just want to add, because the new assessment, it's called Teaching Strategies Gold, and it is a developmental curriculum. And again, it's not that it's not good, it is a good tool that looks at a child developmentally where they should be. And it does go birth to grade 3, and so I am planning to ask pre-K teachers to also participate in the training, because we may voluntarily do that, because again, it's a nice continuum. And down the road, since it is pre-K to grade 3, I do wonder at what point in time they will also expect that follow the child. So right now, it's just kindergarten, but you do think at some point in time, the state will extend that.
Okay, so where is that on
Which one?
Under guidance.
the teaching?
Well, the goal, I think that I have, I didn't put the note, I don't think. I added,
I have 2202 for the Ready School Assessment.
right, I put that in the kindergarten line,
Yeah?
but the other one is included in the 02071, which if you notice, 02071,
1,200%.
it went up by,
Mm-hmm.
it went up by 6,000. Maps was only 5,000, so I didn't put the note. We couldn't decide on a figure. I think at the last minute we said 1,000, but I forgot to put the note, so I can add the note.
So 02071.
Oh,
testing
2071, so 5,000 is MAPS and 1,000 is the other.
I just happened to call the woman, telling her that I was building the budget and just get an idea of how much it was, and that's when she told me, you don't have a choice, the state has decided. So I was twirling with that.
Sometimes that's easier. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Any questions from Margaret?
The school nurse's
Not a
salary,
question for this.
02432, is that just
Which one, I'm sorry?
the
Pardon.
02432?
That's because the person is hitting the top step. It is a significant increase. So you get 2% on the scale, plus they went to the top step. And we have a big jump when you go from, I think it's step 10 to step
Step
11.
11, the last step on the scale.
So
yeah.
that's a step.
11%?
Okay.
It's 11%. That's what I said.
Yeah,
That's what caused
that
that,
highlighted.
our salaries to go up, the
This was part
higher
of it?
percentage, because when I sat and did, I broke them all down, what people got in steps, it was $130,000 in step raises.
And if you remember, well, maybe some of you wouldn't because you're new, but when Jim was here that short time, we asked that same question, it was it was like $65,000. So that does represent because of the fact that we've been hiring young teachers, and there are some teachers, like Joan said, that get a certain point on the scale, and then there's a larger bump for them. So it sounds like from 10 to 11.
Right, whatever that last step.
11 is the 11 is the last step, and then once you get beyond 11, you just get the percentage.
Just if it was
rate.
2%,
That's
that's what you
right,
would get.
that's right.
Okay.
So
I
that's
actually-
probably why
It's
they.
funny you called that one
said-
out, because I thought must have had a mistake, because
No.
I said, wow, 11%, that's huge. And I went back and checked the records.
just where
and
she falls on
and
the
it's
Yeah,
scale.
just
well, the
where she-
11% didn't jump out at me, it was the fact that it was a salary that was 11%.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay,
You can see it individually, because there's only
Right.
one person in that position.
right.
Right. Okay, any other questions for Margaret? Okay, then we'll go to tab 13. Oh, sorry, G. The Pembroke School.
I don't have anything in G.
You don't? Oh, that's not good. Here,
Weird.
you take.
Might just be in the
take
wrong
G.
place. Some of my
No, I
stuff
think
was in
Laura
the wrong
probably, when she's
place.
putting together, she's
Oh,
missed it.
okay, yeah.
Or it might be in the wrong
It
place.
might be an
And she might have
A's,
missed
or
it.
it might be behind the
But I'll share
curly
with
stuff
you.
at the back.
There's only one change in it.
Okay, Donna, welcome.
Pretty much nothing has changed. The only change we did add was the map testing and the guidance supplies, but other than that, everything was pretty consistent straight across
Mhm.
from this year.
Right. Yeah, and your secretary would be the only,
And then Diane going full-time.
Yeah.
right.
And the 03101, sped support
education.
professional salary, that's, because we had to add, is that speech and
that might,
language?
check down below, Pam, just check
Yeah.
down below, see if
Oh,
that's,
okay.
Five
Bottom one.
instructional,
Just-
one full-time, and
Oh,
I think that might be
the very last one.
increase in the speech and language,
yeah,
is what I'm
Yep.
guessing.
yes, thanks.
Not much change at all on here.
No. Okay, anything else for Donna? Told you, there's not really, it's not really a lot of remarkable discussion on many things here. All right, anything for Donna? Okay, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now, do you wanna talk about, let's see, so, should we go to?
Special ed, maybe?
Yeah, okay, it's section
M.
M. Donna, do you mind coming up? Section M, special education.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello?
Okay.
So, I think when you take a look at the special education budget, what you're gonna notice is line by line, there really isn't much different, with one exception. In the out-of-district placement area, we did go down in that area, but I would wanna remind you, although that's fabulous, we never know what's gonna happen over the summer, or, you know, what changes might be, so, you know, we're gonna.
Positive
hope
or
that that
negative,
stays.
sometimes children move.
Yep, you just never know, it can go either way, so,
Right.
you know, we'll keep a good thought there. But, in regards to special education, we're gonna continue moving forward, working on developing our language-based classrooms, bringing in the type of support we need from the landmark outreach, as well as continuing to develop our social emotional program, putting supports in there, and looking at the greenhouse program for the preschools as well. We're also going to continue our efforts with Melmark and working in our autism spectrum program. So really similar things, just continuing on and, you know, just building up and supporting what's already started, and, you know, you'll see that reflected in the budget.
So we budgeted tuition and tuition at 4% increase. That's also something that's somewhat volatile. Those of you who are new to the committee probably hadn't seen this happen, but we have in the past. We budget 4%, seems reasonable, right? But we have had situations where the state will approve after the fact, increases of tuition at 24%, 31%. So, you know, again, we can't always predict that, but, you know, we do build the 4% in. And, we do anticipate, what were we thinking, 350 in circuit breaker?
300. I budgeted 300.
You budgeted 300,
I think 315.
okay.
If they don't change the threshold and they fund it at 75%, it looks like 315, although this year we did realize more. We ended up with 340,
We did,
342.
342 this year.
I don't know if there was extraordinary expenses, that it's hard to tell. I based the 315 on just tuition out, but we get circuit breaker reimbursement for heavily involved in-district students. There's no way for me to judge what that will be, because I don't know all the different therapies that students get, so we have just included tuition out.
And that's something that my secretary and I are just starting to work on, looking at those grids and trying to determine exactly what we might be obtaining, deciding if we're going to apply for extraordinary relief or not, and that could change the numbers too. But again, that's very variable. And whether we receive 75% or not, we won't know till, oh my gosh, I think in the spring sometime, what the actual
when they-
percentage is.
When the state approves the budget?
Right,
Correct.
right.
Well, sometimes they say they're gonna fund it at 72%, and then they tell us in September that they were able to fund it at 75, or worse, they've gone
40.
the other way.
I think they get a lot of pressure.
I remember
They
that
get
year.
a lot of pressure when
40% year.
they try to touch circuit breaker reimbursement.
But the projected revenues for the state are up, so, I mean, I'm not seeing that we're gonna get cut at the state level. It
No.
sounds like local aid will be increased, and a percentage of our, per pupil, I think, is gonna go up again. It went up last year, so, I mean, those revenues come into the town, but I don't think that we need to worry about, the funding of circuit breaker anyways this year.
No. And the grant, the 94-142 grant, for some reason, and again, I don't know how come, but it's been reduced. I mean, we've been
Considerably.
going down significantly
Every
on
federal
that.
grant.
Program improvement grant as well.
Yeah.
Julie's
It's
grants
a
went
third
down.
of what it
Yeah.
was 2 years ago. It's,
Yeah, so I think, you know, maybe those will, you know, rebound, but, you know, grants are, that's why I call them soft money, right? Although the grants we're talking about tend to be more predictable. You know, the title grants, like Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and 94-142 have always been, you know, fairly predictable, although they've, you know, seen some decreases. But I just point that out because, you know, we also have to pay attention to that, because we do put things on the grant that offset what doesn't go into the budget. So it's important to know that as well.
for
Those-
example, our extended school year is paid from one of the grants. So you don't see that reflected here, but that is a cost that we incur.
Yeah, and we have to provide that.
Right.
The other thing that is reflected in the salaries throughout this budget is, you know, we did make I had negotiations with the Support Association, if you recall, and there were some significant changes to the categories of assistants, of paraprofessionals. So right now, there are aides and there are tutors. Included in this budget are paraprofessionals, instructional paraprofessionals, and tutors. There are fewer tutors, more instructional paras, but that adjust, there's a different pay scale for that. So those adjustments have all been made to this budget, and I think the increase in that was about $30,000 as a result of that,
Right, but
spread
I
over the
think
budget.
we also were able this year to reduce our numbers, so it offset the 30,000 somewhat because we reduced the number of positions
Yes,
this current school year.
correct. Okay, and one of the graphs that I know this FinCom liked last year was this graphic here, or this table on special education circuit breaker. And, the expenses, the annual tuition, then the transportation cost, which is not reimbursable. Remember that is not reimbursable. The actual cost, so the actual cost of 2014 tuitions used to project FY14 reimbursement was $1.5 million, of which 307 comes back in a reimbursement. So it's helpful, but it's
Nowhere
it's
near.
nowhere near what
What we need.
what we absorb in the cost. Any questions for Donna?
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Donna.
very much.
Thank you.
Do you wanna go to the maintenance of buildings and grounds, Joan? Tab L?
That's basically remained the same, except for some salary increases.
Yeah, there's
Um,
nothing there.
No projects this year. No
Well, part
projects.
of that is because we have the Pembroke project coming online, so we wanna do only the essential things, at Pembroke at this point. And, Pearlie is in good shape as well, thanks to the repair of the roof and, the ability to have that whole wing is kinda renovated. We're working this summer on getting the roof, the historic part of the roof done, and the dentistry, all that should be taken care of. So Pearlie, is in pretty good shape in that way. And then, of course, we're working on the middle high school project and, that would come back up before the town and, so the way we're looking at it is a lot of that work is gonna be driven by external stuff.
Right.
So,
When do we hear about the walkway?
the
Like,
walkway,
the
oh, that's
CIP?
closed right
Yeah,
now?
from CIP, like.
They were
what was-
supposed to meet last night, they didn't meet, so,
Oh, they didn't meet.
no,
Well,
but we
okay,
have,
just now.
we've met now 3 times,
Okay.
which has been great,
Yep.
three Wednesdays in a row. So they'll meet next Wednesday to vote, the CIP will vote. And they were very supportive
Okay.
of both our projects, the rooftop units, the
Mhm.
200,000 for the rooftop units, the committee was very supportive, and also the stairs.
The stairs.
Yeah, because the problem that I find with the stairs is, people are still going up, beyond the yellow caution tape, which people could
Really?
get hurt.
Right, and Peter Durkee said at our last CIP meeting that he was presenting at, that he was going to temporarily fix it as soon as the snow was gone.
Yeah.
To Band-Aid us through, so it was safe,
Okay.
fix that, I think it's the bottom step.
Yeah,
Fix that until we can have them fix this summer, or
Okay.
replace this
Okay.
summer. And
Yeah,
as
it
long
needs
as
to
they
be
get
pulled out.
approved.
yeah, I
Replaced.
know.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be nice of him to do that.
Can he temporarily fix
can
them
temporarily
in
fix
such a
it.
way that they are gonna be safe?
Yeah,
Relatively safe.
You sure?
Well,
Well,
the
that's what
fire,
he
the
said.
fire chief has been very involved in
Yeah,
this project too, and
Good.
so, I mean, I think at the safety meeting, we had district safety meeting, I think I was out, but Joan was there, and Margaret was there, I think. He was very concerned about it, in fact, he said, you need to close this down.
yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't
So-
he the one that asked about
Right,
the?
he was, so,
You were at that
so
meeting,
he's,
correct?
I think he
Yes.
would be very involved in making sure that, and John Mativier, we make sure that, it was gonna pass muster with the building inspector
Good.
as well.
Okay.
Cause we don't wanna
'Cause-
accept any liability.
No,
if
because
it's
what
not
I've
right.
run into in the past is in that scenario, a situation has been patched,
Yeah,
thought it was safe, met requirements, And now you've encouraged people to come back and use it,
Mhm.
and then something had broken off, and there was a huge lawsuit that came after that.
Yeah, not good.
So it's,
Well, that's a good caution.
if you can do it right on a temporary, it's okay, but
Right.
sometimes people think they can do it right on a temporary.
Okay,
So we should know
Well,
next
we-
week,
we'll definitely.
Next Wednesday,
If
CIP
they
will
vote on
vote.
it.
Yep.
and then
And-
how quickly?
But then I think it has to
Like,
go
it
through
has to go-
FinCom. I
It
mean,
has to go to
yeah.
FinCom, but it is the capital monies that are already set
Yeah.
aside,
Mm.
so. But the committee seemed very supportive of it.
Oh, well, that's good, great.
Does this reflect,
Which tab are you?
I'm still looking at building and grounds maintenance, and I don't even know if there's really been any discussion about it, but with the
Necessary.
turf field project coming online, and then, there's a bunch of equipment that's gonna be temporary, so it's gonna be being moved in and out on a constant basis, goalposts going up and down, and is that part of this? Has that been thought about? Cause that's gonna take their time, I'm assuming they're doing this.
Oh, our maintenance men, you mean?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's gonna fall to them, but maybe not.
Oh, the maintenance will fall to them.
So that takes their time,
Right, they already are taking care of the grass
Grass
though, and
fields.
lining it,
yeah?
so that's time consuming, so they
Yeah.
won't be doing that.
They're
You're saying
thinking
once
it's
the
gonna be
project
less
is
time.
done,
Thinking it's just gonna be a wash?
let's hope it's better than a wash.
That's what we're hoping.
It's time consuming taking care of that field.
Yeah. What'll be a challenge probably is that the job descriptions for the equipment with the turf fields are these, hit and run tasks where you have to plug them in at certain times versus when you're doing the field, it's a chunk of time all at once.
Oh.
So there's gonna be a learning curve,
Sure.
coordination. I didn't know if that affected this at all.
No, and to be honest with you, until the guys are trained on it, I don't know how would project out that. I mean, we don't really know what it involves. We haven't learned that piece yet.
Well, shouldn't we know that piece and not just have it teach us?
That's always a good thing.
Is there a training for the maintenance crew once the field is installed? Will there be
Well,
a
we'll have
training?
to-
I'm
on
sure
Yeah.
there will be.
Just like when the new school
sure there
opens,
will
there's gonna
be.
be a lot of things that we have to, that the
Are you,
custodians
are
and
you
the maintenance
wondering
crew will
if
have
there
to
should be
learn.
an increase in there for training costs or?
Yeah, for anything, I just, yeah, that's all.
Mhm.
If there's enough in there, for that.
Okay. Well, you know what, let us look at what Mike was thinking. We'll discuss that with him and then make sure that,
At least he's,
and if there
has a chance to.
is a suggested change or whatever, we can discuss that on the 13th. Okay, so
Yep.
we ask Mike about that.
Yep.
Okay. Anything, okay, so we did the maintenance, just trying, because we did jump around, just wanna make sure we hit every tab. Athletics
Yeah, we
is,
can do
tab
that.
K.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions about anything Chris put together? And again, you may have questions on the 13th that you haven't thought of now. So if there's anything that jumps out at you that you'd like us to get more information from Chris, happy to do that. And if you want, just email any questions if you need more time on that. Special ed, and then the revolving accounts. Oh, and Barbie asked a question about food service. Right, Barbie?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
So it's difficult to project out food services. I did just a little grid based upon what I know now.
thank you.
It's hard to measure the years together. I looked at the last 3 years. 2 years ago, let's say the first year I looked at, utilities were still being charged to food services, so I can't measure that. Last year, the lunchroom, the recess supervisors were being charged to food services, which they really can't be charged there, so we pulled them out for this current school year. They're not providing food, they're not serving
Right,
food, so
right, that doesn't
the
make sense.
law doesn't allow you to charge them, so we took them out and we put them onto our budget last year.
Okay.
So it's hard to measure where do we think we are?
Not entirely comparable.
Well, it's
Right.
not apples to
Right.
apples, yeah.
So, but based upon what I know today, and looking at the monthly revenue, I can project out, unless her participation increases dramatically, that we'd be still taking in just about what we take in, which is about $440,000. I can't see her having much more than about a $4,000 carry forward for this current year. I mean, she's making a lot of changes. She's trying to increase participation, but, you know, we're not there yet. She just wrote a grant to buy a
Salad
purchase a
bars.
salad bar
Oh.
and a grant to buy a smoothie machine, so those changes could increase participation. She's changed her menus a lot, and you guys all have kids, so you probably know she's changed her menus a lot. So it's kind of a wait and see.
We've been wanting those for years in
Well,
the Health and
let
Wellness
me
Committee,
ask
I
you a
have to
question.
say.
So if those grants do not come, she does not receive them, what is our plan of attack? If that's what we think the kids want.
Well, she had said that, I'm not sure about the salad bar, how much the cost is. She may even have to do some kind of solicitation or fundraising to offset some of the costs, or maybe she looks at that as a way to fund a salad bar. Although I will say that a lot of schools, this grant program, you signed off it, I don't know where it came from. I know the smoothie machine was from the US Dairy Council. A lot of schools are really implementing salad bars, paid for out of this grant, so this should be a good chance. We can make a makeshift salad bar, but again, I mean, it's the look of the salad bar that would encourage kids to participate, because it would look like salad bars they go to in
Right,
restaurants.
and then I thought the problem that we had talked about with the salad bar was the maintenance of it, like somebody there to constantly be making sure that the food isn't,
Right,
going
but
into the
to be honest
different.
with you, she's really been changing up her staff in the kitchens and how they operate and how they work the lines. She's closed a line sometimes when she doesn't think that she needs to keep both open. It's still, for her, and I think for us, it's kind of a wait and see thing until she tries things and see how they operate.
Is there space for a salad bar?
Well, that's the discussion I had with her, but she's got some ideas, so, I don't wanna discourage her, I think, but I don't know how much the salad bar was something the kids all said they wanted. I mean, I think she's heard from all of us.
Well, I think when we did that survey, I think salad bar was definitely, when we, did the survey last year.
Yeah, I think
Salad
this
bar was
next year,
mentioned.
she's really wanting to get
It
more
was.
engaged with the kids. She wants to do that survey again. But I know the teachers have asked about a salad bar.
I know the problem with doing surveys though, and
get a
then,
percentage, yeah.
well, not just that, but you're getting the information and then no one sees the change.
No,
So then all of a sudden you see another survey and you're like, well, then you do get the discouraged kids that are like, well, I filled that out before and I said what I wanted.
right.
So,
Well, filling it out doesn't guarantee that 100% of what you want you're gonna get.
no, but there
But-
hasn't been
yeah.
much.
Well, I don't know. I think she's done quite a few changes, but again, maybe, it's all relative, isn't it, to what individual people want to see. It's a tough, this is a national issue. You're probably following it. Some districts have said, we are not following those nutrition regulations because we're losing our shirts.
Right, I've
We're
read about
losing
that.
our shirts.
Can't do
The
that in
kids,
Massachusetts.
the kids won't,
No.
the kids won't eat it, and, we're not serving it. And they'll actually turn down the reimbursement.
Right, but you can't do that. It's not allowed in Massachusetts. We already looked into that.
No, I don't know, believe me, I'm not suggesting it. I was gonna say, I'm not suggesting it at all, but I'm just saying, it's a national,
Yeah, I know
national
I know it is
issue.
a problem. So what are we looking, do you have an idea of the amount of kids? Are we seeing an increase?
I
Or are
don't think
we
so.
seeing?
she's
like,
trying to maintain at the middle high school.
Uh-huh.
And she said her elementary is pretty flat.
Flat?
She's seen an increase in employees.
Right, yeah.
Faculty has been
Right.
participating more, which is great.
That's great.
Well,
But I
I
mean,
mean, the
one
food is,
can-
she's doing, there's homemade food.
Yeah, no, I.
And some of the kids, like that. Some kids don't want to eat American chop suey, even if it's delicious, because they want the piece of pizza from the local pizza shop
Right.
One
every
thing,
day of their life.
Kids can be tough
And that's how it
customers
goes.
that way.
one thing she has been able to do, I can speak to, is reducing the cost of the food. Because she has really been utilizing the commodity foods.
Right.
and purchasing them and not diverting them into, other products, and then cooking from scratch.
Right.
So it really has saved on expenses, much
Wow.
more than, we were buying mostly diverted products last year, so.
Right, definitely.
And,
Your
you know, the
food and
Pembroke is gonna be a whole new game when we have a new
Yes,
school,
absolutely.
so that's,
Absolutely.
She's
So-
tried to increase her catering,
Yeah.
catering different events at the high school especially, and when Pembroke comes on, she should really be able to flourish that area, because she'll have, the high school kitchen is small, it's tough.
Mhm.
It'll be a nice
Yeah,
kitchen
it's
when
not a
Pembroke
very,
opens.
it is kind of
So when
congested.
you say like catering, like banquet, like the
Like
school- the
she
sport
did a-
banquets that we have, and
Yep,
people
she-
usually bring things. and-
Right, she did some, Chris had some training, remember, with the
Right.
kids, a whole bunch of the students
We
were trained. and-
remember we did
Oh, the
captains.
Yeah.
Right, they catered that lunch for the kids, and then she can give a bill to, the athletic department, and then they pay for that, so.
We've talked to her about, like, when we have a PD day, rather than, if there's a limited amount of time, teachers could order, like a nice box lunch, but it would be, like nice, fresh, like macaroni salad, homemade stuff, a nice sandwich. She's shown interest in doing something like
At
that.
Pearly
too.
School, we can order online. Staff
That's
can order
very-
online
Oh,
every
wow.
day, yep.
wow.
So, I mean, it does take time.
They're all turning and looking.
No, it doesn't get delivered, you have to go down and get it, but, well, that's good.
Thank you for bringing that up, Joan. Barry Belanger is phenomenal. And so, just in talking with Heather and Barry about how we can increase staff lunch, we just came up with the idea about trying to order online, and within like 2 minutes, Barry emailed us and had it all worked out, and this, beautiful site and all different choices, and, so if we order by 9:30, just go right online, and salad, and then all the components, and then if it's a wrap, what you want in it, and then, Mrs. Gata prints it out, and then there it is, so it's, it's like a spreadsheet of the orders, so.
One of the things that Heather's also doing, I was chatting with her when she came over about the salad bars. She said one of the things that's hard is she said that the kids don't take everything that they can. Like she said, like the kids will say there's not enough food, right? But she said, she said I've actually created a tray and taken pictures of it, so that I'm going to try to display it in some way so that people can see that if you take everything, you have a lot of food on your plate.
I think that's a great
If
idea.
you take everything. If you just take the piece of pizza, the milk, and the dessert, then it doesn't look like there's very much on your plate at all. But sometimes kids want 3 pieces of pizza. They don't, so they don't want to take the big piece of pizza, the salad, the fruit, the vegetable, whatever else can come with it. So I get that too. But I think it is important because you're retraining people. It's not always about there's not enough. It's that you have to take it all in
So,
order to have it be full.
Is these initiatives that Heather's implementing, are they being explained to the students? Or I just, like, it seems to me that there might be a gap, if the students, last year I could get 3 pieces of pizza, and how come I can only get 3 pieces this year, or something. I'm just thinking, like, is somebody explaining
Well,
to
I think
them,
they, when they
we
go through the
have this
line,
program now that we have to follow because we're in Massachusetts.
the
and
kids know
They
that.
need to know where it's coming from, that it's not just, why do I have to go to school in Georgetown where they have such horrible lunches?
Mhm.
Like, in
The staff,
fact,
she has trained the staff to, make
Encourage.
sure that they encourage taking a vegetable, and, I don't think it's any.
I think they put them on the tray. They fill the
At the
tray at the
kids,
little
right,
guys.
Right. And if they don't want this vegetable, then encourage them to select a salad or, a piece of a salad or whatever. It is a learning curve. It's a learning curve even for the staff,
Mhm.
the rest of the staff,
Yeah.
so.
But Heather's going to come back again this year
Yeah,
at April maybe, and we can have good conversation with her about this in more detail, because I know
She's got a tough job.
she is a tough job, but she's very enthusiastic and she doesn't give up easily, and she's
I mean, I
room
almost
for
think like
growth and
letting her,
innovation.
even especially with the young kids, and I don't know if this is part of her job, do a classroom presentation.
She did she did something at Pearlie, she read a book or something, and
We
then
did, Thunder Cake.
Thunder Cake.
Thunder
I think it was
Cake.
in October,
Uh-huh.
and, I read the book at every lunch, and then the kitchen prepared the Thunder Cake, and then at the end of the story,
No, but I just mean to go in and tell the kids what her job is and why, she makes the decisions about what's served at lunch, and how does she make her decisions?
Hmm.
How do I decide what goes on the lunch menu? Just as simple as that.
Yeah.
Not,
she
I
could be
can't
invited
give
to
you a
morning
kid-
meeting.
That's what I think, and not just at Pembroke. Because those kids, I feel like, for me, it would complete the loop. We have these conversations at dinner every night. How much protein have you had today? How many vegetables have you had today? Like, we talk about it. We talk about, because it's such a battle with the 9-year-old. But I feel like it would be so amazing if that message was coming from another adult. And I think Heather, she's young, she's energetic, that if she went into the classroom to talk to young kids, they would respond to her. She seems to me like she has a great energetic presence, and she could just go in and say, guess what I do? Do you guys know who I am? Do you know what my job is? I'm the person who creates that menu. What questions do you have? Let me answer your questions. I think it would be really just a nice thing
It's a good
to do for
suggestion,
the
we can talk
kids
about that.
and the families.
Okay.
Would help our conversations. Then my daughter would roll her eyes and say, I know, I learned that at school.
I think the hope lies in the youngest ones, and,
Yes, the
and
little guys.
to try to stay with them during, long-range plan. The high school kids, they're just, my
Well,
son-
that's-
my
and
son's-
that's my
My son's
point.
there, so.
That's my point, was because she came to the wellness committee meeting with me
Yeah.
and listened to the conversation, and when we got in the car, she had so much to say about what she heard at that meeting.
Oh, really?
And it was not all positive, and I thought, why didn't you speak up? They need to
Oh, she's
know
talking.
this.
Yeah.
But she told me
Thinking.
things that I think that if she went to every class at Pembroke and asked the kids, so what do you like about lunch here? And do you want to know why you have to have vegetables? How would you like? She would learn a lot, because we talked about doing a survey, but you can't do a survey with those young kids. Let her just show, and I don't know if she'd be open to that.
Oh, yeah,
or-
she would be.
But my sense is she would be, yeah.
Yeah, she
And
would
she'd
be.
be fun, and then the kids would know her, and they'd like,
Mhm.
and as you said, Rob, get them while they're young, and maybe by the time they get to high school, they won't be addicted to M&Ms and Cheez-Its and.
So, there's under tab Q is enrollment information. That is always interesting. And then the R is just your regular, helping with the accountability, the accounting system, tracking that. And then finally, under tab T is the job descriptions and the proposals for the positions that we discussed. And I think that's pretty much the overview of the budget. And we certainly would be interested in any questions or open to hearing any discussion that you would have about it.
So you mentioned that the assistant principal position is posted?
I believe so.
Yes, it is.
We have it on School Spring and
Internally posted, right?
internally as well. And then we post all position, anything we put out on School Spring, we always post internally
Okay.
as well.
And so when do you think that, like, the
When was
whole
the closing?
process
Did we,
Well, my plan is to start interviewing in a couple weeks, at the beginning of March, and hopefully by mid-March, or certainly by the end of March, have that position filled.
I think the closing date was the Friday before vacation. Wasn't it the
right,
Friday
that
before
that would
vacation?
make sense.
Next Friday.
Next week, probably the 14th.
Next Friday. I'm pretty sure that's when it was.
I was just curious to know if this change in the Pembroke secretary position, if the current secretary was
Interested?
interested in
Yes,
that
I've had that
position?
conversation with her and she is
Nice to
interested.
know, good.
I would always do that homework ahead of time. It's a good time for Diane, I think
She's great.
the schedule, she does an awesome job. And the first, when she first became the secretary there, for a lot of reasons, it made sense. you know, and Donna's always had the flexibility and been willing to work in the summer around it, but there's no doubt that there's certainly a gap when there isn't someone there in the summer, especially if, you know, the principal's going on vacation or, but, you know, I mean, Diane's done an awesome job, and it made sense for everybody to make it work, but now it's, you know, it's moving in the direction, and she's on board with that. It's gonna work out fine for all parties involved.
And how many secretaries will they require once the new school?
We are planning on 2.
Sorry for going backwards. You know who could be a food ally for the high school? The athletic department.
Oh, in terms of,
Just,
for nutrition and, yeah, oh, yeah.
they would have motivation. Those kids in high school would be motivated.
Right.
I don't know if she's thought of that as a
I
possible
think
way to-
she has worked with Chris on a couple of things, but like we said,
Yeah.
mostly on the banquet. I don't know how much has been involving the kids, you know.
Cause I can just see them at lunchtime, you know, if they're that conscious of what they're putting in their bodies, they
Right.
might start eating differently even if they don't want to.
They might. They might.
I need to bring in some professional athletes or something.
Well, sometimes that makes a difference too.
Sometimes it does.
I don't think that's
I mean,
in our
if you
budget.
if you started offering smoothies, you know, and they were like
Smoothies are
protein
great.
shakes, you know, you know,
Her parfaits
Yeah.
went over like crazy.
yeah.
I know, I just don't think that there was enough of them. Like the supply and demand, I don't think,
For the high school?
middle, high school.
She said she was having trouble keeping
Yeah, I know,
up with,
because I
remember she
know that
said
a
that
couple
when
of
she.
kids had said, oh, we saw them, but then when we asked about them, they said,
Oh.
oh, that's for the next lunch.
Oh, that's probably
So
what it is, they
that was-
probably,
That's the
Yeah.
problem, it's,
Mhm.
or when that lunch came in, they were already sold out,
Okay.
you know,
that could be.
so. But I heard that they were really
And, you know,
good.
she wants to do the little food, you know, those samples, you know, so try this.
She has
and-
done some of those
Yeah,
sampling,
she has.
yeah.
Yeah, she has.
But I think there's also a difference between what the high school kids like and what the
Oh, of course.
elementary
yeah.
kids like.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the
Absolutely.
things I got an earful from.
Oh, yeah.
Those things were really yucky, you know? But the high school kids at the meeting were all saying how great they were,
That's fine.
not the 9-year-old.
So,
No, it looks great,
Thoughts?
thank you.
So-
It's
Yeah.
very
It looks-
easily readable, and it's
Yes.
enjoyable, actually, because everything is, any question you have, that's why I sent you so little
right,
emails, because everything was so self-explanatory as you just went down and noticed the number, so I appreciate that.
good. Good.
You know, the difference between a part-time and a full-time director of technology
Yes.
is gonna be huge. And I think we talked about, you know, the possibility of starting out with a part-time and moving on, but we're building the Pembroke School right now.
Yes,
And
we are.
we and we need somebody who can really coordinate what we're going to put in there from the start. I think, what do you see as the real reason for having a full-time versus a part-time?
Well, I think
I mean,
if
and
we
it-
look at the job
and
description,
and there's
you know,
park coming on
think
too.
I think
Park
that's,
is huge.
you know, yeah, I mean, there's all of that, and some of that falls, you know, under Julie's purview, you know, because it's got a, you know, an instructional bent, you know, I'm not expecting the technology director to, you know, be doing that as much as, you know, certainly working with the tech staff around instructional technology and making sure that we, you know, we're doing, you know, up-to-date software applications. You know, the high school wants to look at maybe a one-to-one, you know, initiative. Well, if you're gonna do a laptop initiative, you have to have somebody who's gonna take that from soup to nuts.
Right,
You know,
right.
There's just a lot of major decisions right now that I think are coming online. The other thing, you know, that I was thinking is, and again, I'll support whatever way we go, but, you know, we all have to think, we're building an annual budget, but we also have to think 3 to 5 years, you know, and, you know, I think when we think back to the year we had the override, we added a lot to the budget, but that's why we're not continuing to need to add, because we added things very strategically.
Right.
And that, so I sort of feel like with something like, you know, the maintenance position, if you recall, right? There was a maintenance position that got cut in an override the year before, the year I came, We tried a lot of creative things. We didn't add that maintenance position right back in. We tried to figure out through creative redirection. But then when we did put it in, look at the difference it made. But it was the right time because we were making improvements to the school. We had the override money, so there was more money infused into maintenance. So it made sense. No, and then we had all the stuff at Pearlie that we needed to have help with. So I think sometimes what you have to do is you have to put things in a time frame that's gonna be, it's gonna work. And what I'm a little nervous about, and again, we could do the halftime, is fine, but if we think about, with all the needs we have in technology right now, if we do it now, then next year, when we start talking about what's gonna happen in the next 2 years, when we start making changes to staffing in order to open the new Pembroke, what's gonna be necessary? There may be things that are really important that I don't really wanna compete with the other half of the technology director's salary. So the way, in my head, the long-range plan is, you know, this is a position we need. It's actually a position we've needed for a while, but because other things were more important, right? The maintenance to us was more important to sell that and to show the value and the worth. And now it's paying dividends for us. And Mike does so much more than just the projects. He networks, he runs interference, he figures out really creative ways to get stuff done. And he's just he's amazing, he's the perfect person for that job. And so what we now need is the perfect person for technology. And, you know, I'd love to figure out a way to do something with the town. They outsource everything. I have a proposal that I'm sitting on that you know, was given by the same consultant that works for the town to do the same thing they do, which is they charge you a fee per head, right? So it's per head, or per computer, per user, I guess it's more per user. But and they come in every 3 years. They change the machines around. It's an on-call. You come in, you got a problem. You put your ticket in, and you get serviced. But it's pretty costly. It's a lot more costly than it's going to be to look at a technology director.
Absolutely.
And again, I don't want to make a judgment about the value, because obviously the town's very happy with and the individuals that I'm aware of are doing that service. They've helped us out, you know, personally many times. But I don't know if that's the best way to go for us as a district, is to do an outsource, okay? But that's why I want to have people who know more than I do about it, right?
Carol, I also think there's a continuity
Yes.
factor in this, which is that if we hire part-time, somebody for a part-time position for next year, that person may not be interested in a full-time position. That may be somebody who's only interested in working part-time. And so when we then decide, oh, we're gonna fund a full-time position, we may lose somebody who's got their own, you know, way of seeing the system, and it started something, and then there's no guarantee that the person you bring in is going to be aligned with what the previous person. So I think that's also something to consider, is that, you know, if it's clear, and we also may not, I mean, it may impact who would even apply for the position. If they're thinking, oh, it's only gonna be a one-year position, versus if it's a full-time position, somebody who can see, wow, there's a new school coming on, like somebody who can project themselves into the future and see that they have a very interesting career opportunity for several years, and that they can commit to Georgetown and to the growth that we are projecting in the area of technology, and that they would be able to be at the forefront of it and kind of spearhead it. I think that's just a factor to take into consideration.
I've given a
Well
lot of
put.
thought to this, and I'm just speaking for myself. I would, considering how important a position it is, and recognizing it's another $35,000, it would be a shame not to take a stab at that.
I'm with you on that.
It would be a shame, and I know it runs the risk of the politics. I get that, but it's $35,000.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
And,
where
and at the end of the day, the FinCom, when they approve your final number, right, they could say, well, we're approving it at $35,000 less. Well, then we have to
You
make
do
a
with what you-
decision.
then
Then
it's
we
up
make
to
a
us.
decision.
Right.
But I think what I hear you saying is if it doesn't put the overall budget out of reach,
Right.
like if it were a 5% increase, then it would be tricky to be able to ask for that. But,
Correct.
if it's the difference between 3.09 or 3.37, it might be worth that risk is
I'm willing to
what
take
you're
that.
saying, yeah.
That's my.
I'm with you on that, Rob, I agree.
I mean, we have, we have a lot of technology needs, and Park is coming up in the next,
Which is technology-based,
two, and-
that's something that really is
right,
important for
the
people to
student's gonna be
understand.
taking this test online, and we're gonna have
You have to have the computers.
The computers for them, and we have to have somebody who
And
knows
an
how to make the
eligible
decision.
person to
What's
set up the
best
network.
way to do
So that it
that?
doesn't crash in the middle of the testing and all of that.
right?
Well, we were
right.
very, very lucky. I mean, between Julie and Barry and, Mary Ellen and all of our tech folks, Kyle, we were able to get that map testing, done. And that was no small task, but I have to say, they more than stepped up to the plate. But again, having someone who can sort of, steer that process and then work with the technology staff.
And it's wonderful, like, on the one hand, I feel like we're blessed to have such talented and people who are willing to step up beyond
Absolutely.
what the college, how often can you ask them to do that?
Oh, yeah, no, we
And I
agree.
think that you can't just keep
Yeah.
drawing water out of that well without doing something to replenish it.
No, in
And-
small districts, we all do windows. Right,
Yes.
Is that something we need to vote on?
Well,
Or just-
yes, when you adopt the
The
final
for
number,
sure,
you
for sure.
gotta adopt the number
No,
that
but I
you're.
mean on this one issue.
If you have consensus on it, I think you'd vote on it. Well,
Just once at the end.
I find either way. I mean, you could certainly take a vote if you wanted, and, that you want to include it in your budget, and then obviously we'll vote on the final number, including it. So, yeah, you could do that, Rob, you could make a motion to vote on it.
If
Is there consensus of it around?
I
it?
was gonna look into it, I just had some questions.
So you maybe weren't
Yeah.
ready to vote?
Yeah, so let's not vote then. That's fine.
Okay. Were there any other questions about any of the other, like, the middle high school, teacher, was there support for that?
The science.
Science, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Pretty.
Was there anything in the budget you hoped to see that you didn't see? I know Barbie asked me a question today about the school resource officer, so I just wanted to kind of address that. So what we do need to find the funding for, Joan and I, it just escaped us, is the $2,500 somewhere for the NEMLEC. This year, Chief Cudmore, remember you voted on that to pay
Yes.
our share? Well, Chief Cudmore, because of something in his budget that worked out, he did not charge us for that. He just paid for it. It was halfway through the year too, so I think there was some kind of an adjustment that was made, but he took care of that. And now he has appointed an officer to that position who works with NEMLEC. And the first project he's going to be working on is, going back and looking at all our crisis plans and looking at our, what did he call it? Kind of like it was police talk. You know what I mean? They have their language like we have our language in education, but threat risk assessment or something
yeah.
like that. So at some point, I think the chief would like to come, by to the school committee and give an update on that and introduce you to the officer, and you can get a little better feeling on that. But
Great.
our share was $2,500 of that. It was never my intention or expectation to put the school resource officer in the school budget. The funding of this has been very strange. It used to be in a grant, and then the police picked it up for 1 year. Then we picked it up when they funded reserve officers, and it's gone back and forth. And so at the end of the day, I asked the chief, did he put it in his budget, basically? Because, there certainly was strong support, I thought, from the committee, strong support from the administration, strong support from the chief, and I think he even got strong support from members of the Board of Selectmen, and of course it was at the
heart of that, you know, emotion around the tragedies that we were seeing, but I don't think there's anybody who doubts that it could be useful and that it, you know, it's a good thing. So when I met with him today, he said that his intention on Saturday is to ask for, I think he's got it figured in such a way that it may not be a full-time SRO, but that it would be someone who would spend a dedicated amount of time in the schools, you know, supporting the schools. And of course, you know, it depends whether or not he can get it, in, you know, they support it in his budget. But he's committed to doing what he can to get funding to support some amount of time for an officer in the schools. We were sort of both hoping that maybe at some point it'd be interesting if it didn't really fall like in the police staffing, it fell into like crossing guards, into like its own little separate line. So it'd be like school resource officer, so that people don't do what happens all the time, which is it competes with everything else.
Sure.
Like, oh, we need more of this, so we take it from here.
So how do we make that happen?
I don't know, Donnie and I were strategizing with it today. I think he wants to see what happens on Saturday when he makes his presentation. But I did say to him that I'm gonna come to the school committee tonight, and I knew the question was gonna come up. So I wanted to be sure I was right.
So
As
we
to what
don't
his
pay for
intention is.
crossing guards out of our budget.
We do not, that
And the
comes,
police budget doesn't pay for that.
well, there is a designated line that I think they put in the public safety budget for crossing guards, so we
That is a
don't.
public, I mean, it does make sense.
Well, I
It's a
feel,
public safety.
and I sort of feel the same way about,
Yeah,
you know, school resource officers is a public safety
right,
position.
right.
It's not really like, it doesn't really look like the patrol officer or the sergeant or the lieutenant.
And it's not
It's a
somebody who's
separate-
educating the children. And
Right, well, some school resource officers do provide, you know, they go in and they provide courses, or they provide, you know, you know, little sessions with the kids on safety. But, so anyway, that's where we
So is he
stand on
gonna be
that
going
right
on
now.
Saturdays asking specifically for an SRO, or no?
I think
gonna
he's
be-
going, asking for, a position.
Mhm.
And I think he's gonna make the case strongly that there's a need for an officer in the schools.
Mhm.
And then I think he has one other small need that he wants to make sure. So if that can be settled in, you know, if he can get a full-time person, he said, he's gonna do what he can to devote, you know, a certain amount of time to the schools. He didn't know if it was gonna, he was pretty certain it wasn't necessarily gonna be 5 days a week
Right.
solely. I think you wanted to be honest about that, cause, you know, he's still building up his department to levels, you know, that he feels he's lost over the, you know, they've been lost in the police department as well. But I just want the commitment to, you know, doing something for the schools, you know, is very high priority,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, it's great that we have his support.
question is whether or
It's clear
not-
that we have his support.
We have his support, yeah. And I mean, he'll do his best to, you know, to defend it. I mean, as a school committee, I mean, you can strongly, you know, urge, you know, the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen to
Mhm.
support a full-time officer as well. You know, you think that that's, you know, I've seen, you know, school committees sometimes write a letter, you know, saying you strongly urge it. It's really up to you, you know, you could certainly make some phone calls if you felt it was really important. But that's the status of where it stands right now, in
Right.
terms of what the chief feels he can.
So the chief is
Bring
gonna
forward.
ask for a position, which is not gonna be 100% dedicated to the
Correct.
schools.
Correct.
But do you think there'd be flexibility, you know, I mean, like if we had a threat and,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely. If that would happen now.
that person would,
Yeah.
If we had a threat right now, every single officer would be directed to it.
right,
You know, that, I feel completely confident
so there
that
would be flexibility.
from the chief on down, that the officers that we have dealt with in the schools have always, you know, put the safety of staff and students at very high priority.
So the officer that's been designated for the NEMLEC, Officer Raymond, I believe you said his
Right.
name was, is he going to introduce himself, like, to the schools, or, like, how would
Well, I kinda got the impression from talking to the chief today that he's not, I mean, he would introduce himself to the administration, he'd be working more at that level, he's really not necessarily working at the student level. But definitely, in fact, he came to a, district safety meeting, Officer Raymond is his name. And he seems, you know, he's going to the training, he seems very excited about it, something he's very interested in.
So where are we gonna find that $2,500? Do you have
I don't
ideas?
know. Well,
So will that,
we were hoping we could fund it out of choice, but again, it really I mean, we have to just figure that out.
is that something we would know though by next week? Where we'll
Well,
go?
we could, we'll have to think it through. I mean, we could look at,
So we're covered until, like, when is the?
yeah, till,
the
for a
year.
year.
Isn't it just till July?
So he would require payment July 2015 or 2014?
I think, wasn't it just the rest of this year?
See, I don't know if it's a year from when you sign up,
Because we
which
just
would,
signed
which
up.
would mean
started
we were
up in-
paying like, unless we only
But he
pay,
said he
unless
was
he only.
prorated.
I don't
Yeah,
know
I
unless he
think, I
was
think that's what he
I
said.
I could get some more information on that.
I'll bet it's just till
And again,
summer.
you know, I mean, we can look at the revolving accounts, I mean, we do have, you know, those
It just
extended
seems like such
day.
a small amount of
I
money.
know, the extended day, we could probably divide it in half and charge 2 revolving accounts and have it there. You know, we could probably do that. It's a one-shot thing, but it's the kind of thing, if we're gonna do it every year, then we should find a designated
Yeah.
line for it and just put it in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other general comments?
It I just, you know, took a look at this budget summary, and there's a line in here for campus safety.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
So that'd be a good example,
That's
put it right
where-
in there.
I mean, and if you add 2,500 to that, it's not that.
Yeah, it's probably not gonna make the budget go up too high. But let's see, we'll figure it out. I'm trying to keep the number low, you know what I mean? I think you all are too, you know? I think we're,
We're trying to separate needs from
Yeah,
wants
yeah.
and.
and if we have an additional way to fund it for a year, well, maybe we'll look there. All right. Okay, so, are we good? So,
I think we're good.
if anybody has any questions or things that occur to them, you know, drop us an email, we'll try to get the answers, and then we'll put it on the agenda under old business for,
Okay.
the 13th, and then if you're all, you know, feeling like, you know, we could also take a vote that, I'll put it on for a vote, and if you choose not to take it, a vote, that's fine. Doesn't matter. If you
Okay.
feel it, you know, you need to do it on the 27th.
Okay, hopefully we can do it on the 13th, but
Now, are we gonna, shall we ask Sandy if she can just wait till the 13th to get the numbers? Because, you know, I'm sure what they're trying to do is get them, you know, like as soon as they can. So remember last year, they just plugged them in tentatively? I mean, I guess one of the thoughts you could do is you could say, look, you can plug in the higher number
Right.
tentatively. And then when you vote on it, if you vote on the lower number, then they just have to make an adjustment down. Better than have to adjust up.
Yes, indeed.
yeah, could we ask her to do that?
Well, if
What do you
that's,
think about that?
Should we take a vote on that?
We-
So,
I mean, you know, in other words, so,
Well,
where's,
With
I
the
don't
3
know.
point,
I don't know if this is. I guess I'd like to present whatever number we present to them as not we're plugging in a number. I
no,
understand, but that.
bad choice of words.
But that we present a number that we have agreed on, I think
Right.
there's strength
I
behind
think we're looking at
that.
2 different numbers though, right? Pretty much.
Yep,
So if Sandy's looking for a number, I mean, if she,
Right.
I just remember last year, that's what she just
All
wanted.
all she wanted
some-
was salaries, non-salaries. I shouldn't say all. What she wanted was salaries, non-salaries, and special ed.
education.
Mhm.
But again, I mean, she,
What-
she
can
Let's
she-
have-
can
can we
wait.
ask-
I
yeah,
think,
but
I think she could wait.
Asking her to wait
I think
till the
for 1
13th.
week, yeah, having wait till the 27th would be a problem, I think, for them, but,
we'll have a much better, we'll be ready on the 13th
I'm
to
hoping
give a
so.
number. one way or the other.
I just have a couple of questions that, over the next couple of days about the Director of
Yeah,
Technology,
okay.
that's all.
okay.
Everything else to me looks good, and it sounded like everybody else was good, so I'm hoping that the 13th we could come to a decision, so that would be great if she could wait.
Okay.
And we
Well,
need to
let's-
have the
let's-
public hearing.
We
We
have
need
the
to have,
public,
you know,
Yeah.
the
Well, yeah.
public would like to have input, that's, we wanna hear it.
right, absolutely,
Yeah, next week at 6:45, correct?
correct. The
13th.
13th,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
45?
6:45 for the public
for the
hearing.
public hearing.
Okay, if anybody, if everybody's all set, we can, adjourn at 8:20. We do have to go into executive session, which I don't have my paperwork that says.
Well, it would be, for,
For
litigation.
Okay, I don't need the.
Well, I think you just have to state that it is for
Okay, we
the-
are going into executive session and will not return for the purpose of litigation. And we'll take a roll call.
Yes.
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 Good night, everybody.
Good night.